Hi everyone! Welcome to my channel. My name's Ashley and this is Crafts with Ash. If you're new, please don't forget to subscribe and hop on Facebook and give my Crafts with Ash page a like and a follow. Today I'm bringing you 2 fall DIYs. Let's get started. First, we're going to start off by making a pumpkin welcome sign. Now this sign was actually inspired from something I saw on LTD Commodities. First, you're going to need 2 packs of these color your own pumpkin ornaments from the Dollar Tree. Then you're going to need some floral foam. Next, you'll need a cute little bucket to stand your sign in. Then I picked up this pack of wooden pumpkin and leaf stickers from Hobby Lobby. Then you'll need some letter stickers. You could also use your Cricut, some floral wire, and a long painter stick or something to use as a post. Now, not shown, I also used some floral moss and some pine cones. So first what you're going to do is you're going to paint 3 of your pumpkins one color, 3 of your pumpkins another color, and 2 of your pumpkins white. Now, you need a total of 7 pumpkins. So what I did here was I took my apple barrel acrylic paint in jack-o'-lantern and I mixed it with some Waverly Wax Antique paint. Now, this is just to taste. You're going to have to just figure out what you like. What you want are 2 different orange-ish colors. So that's what I did here. And then as I was painting it on, I didn't love it. And you're going to see here that I actually added some color because after I finished painting 3 of those that color, I put just the regular jack-o'-lantern color on 3 other ones and then realized they were really close to each other. So I didn't even use it. So you're going to see that I add some red acrylic paint to the other 3 original pumpkins that I painted, and then it darkened it up and it made a beautiful color. And I apologize, I think I did 3 of the red, 2 of the orange, and 2 of the white. Next, I took some of this Christmas green color from Apple Barrel and I painted each of the stems. Now, while I had all my paints out, I took the wooden sticker letters and I painted 1 leaf. I'm only going to be using 1 leaf for this project. So I just kind of took my greens and orange and reds, mixed them all together and painted the leaf. I thought that would make it a more natural look. Next, I took my antique Waverly wax and a very fine point paintbrush and I painted some pumpkin lines and did some shading on the pumpkins. So I started from the bottom and curved up and did the same thing on the other side. Then I put 2 lines in the middle of those. And then I added some shading on the outside as well, so kind of at the edge of the pumpkin. Then, by using whatever paint was on that brush, I dry brushed the Waverly Wax paint in the middle to kind of give it some shading. I repeated this for all 7 pumpkins. Once I painted all of my pumpkins, I took my sanding block and I really wanted to sand the edges to bring out the natural look underneath. Now you're going to see that I jumped to sandpaper, but it was way too hard and rough on the pumpkins, so I just went back to my sanding block. And I sanded all 7 pumpkins. I really paid attention to the edges and on the stem. And what I really loved, what gave it a great look, was that I just literally took my sanding block, put the pumpkin on the table, and let it have it. So I made up a new motto. When you need to de-stress, just come and distress. Okay, I know that was cheesy. Please don't unsubscribe to my channel. Next, I'm going to put all the letters on my pumpkins. First, I arranged all my pumpkins in the color combination that I wanted. That way, I lined it up perfectly. Then I just spelled out the word welcome with one letter on each pumpkin. Then I took some Mod Podge and I put a nice thin coat over each of the pumpkins. Now I did cover the whole pumpkin because after Mod Podge dries, it kind of leaves a shiny look. So I didn't just want the letter to be shiny, I wanted the whole thing to be shiny, or at least be uniform and go together, blend together well. Plus, I wanted to protect my paint on my pumpkins. Then I took my floral wire and I tried to get really close to the camera so I could show you, but I cut off a piece, then I doubled it, so I folded it in half, and then I twisted the pieces together, and then taking a paintbrush, I wrapped the tip of the floral wire around the paintbrush to kind of make it those loop-de-loos, because I'm going to use this as those vines that stick out from the top of the pumpkin. So I wasn't going to put a vine type thing on all of the pumpkins, so I arranged how it's going to look on my sign. I arranged the pumpkins, and it is going to be standing going vertical. And then I kind of decided how many vines I wanted and on which letters. So I took the wire and I put it through the little hole through the top, and then I wrapped it to the back, and then I did add some hot glue to give it some support so it didn't move. And of course, using my finger protector, I pushed it down so that way it was stuck in the back. Then I took my leaf, and I'm only putting the leaf on the W. I added some antique Waverly wax and to the tops just to give it kind of more of a rustic look, and then I hot glued that to the stem of the W pumpkin. Then I went ahead and I added, I believe, 3 more vines on 3 more pumpkins. Next, I took my long paint stick and I laid it on my table and then arranged my pumpkins how I wanted it. Now, I put the W at the very tippy top, and then going down, I alternated kind of going sideways, if you know what I mean. Hopefully visually you'll understand it, but I didn't just do one straight down line. I kind of alternated and went topsy-turvy, I guess, with my letters. But just make sure to put the W at the very top, or else you're not going to have a lot of stick at the bottom to stick into your bucket. Next, I grabbed my bucket. I got this one from the Dollar Tree. I thought it was so cute with the owl. And I stuck my floral foam inside and put my stick in there. Now, I thought I would have to add marbles or something, but it's so light up top, I really didn't. It held perfectly. Then I took some of my moss and I arranged the moss around in the bucket to hide the foam. Then I kind of thought, this is cute, but it also needed something. So I grabbed some pine cones from a pack that I got on sale after Christmas last year at Big Lots. Of course, you can always go outside and get them for free. That works too. And I put 2 pine cones right in the front. And that completed my look. And there you have it, a standing welcome sign. What do you think? Our next craft is going to be a welcome to our patch stand-up sign. Have you ever had a craft that you visualized in your head and thought it was going to go in a completely different direction? That was this craft, but I think it turned out really super cute. So let's get started. First, you're going to need one of these rectangular box signs. They have a bunch of different styles, but I really liked the orange on the side of these. Then you're going to need one of these standing pumpkins. Now they have a variety of these too, just one of them would work. And then the metal words, and then the football and pumpkin sign. I've been using a ton of these because that's 3 pumpkins for $1 right there. Then I used some brown burlap and then just some regular tan burlap. Then you're going to need some sticker letters. I didn't end up using these ones, but these ones did come from the Dollar Tree. Then some scrapbook paper. I got mine from Hobby Lobby. It was 25 cents. Then you're going to need these pumpkin cutouts that I got from the Dollar Tree, this pack of wooden stickers that I got from Hobby Lobby, and some of these 3D pop-up stickers too. So first what I did was I deconstructed this pumpkin. I took the sunflower off and the raffia bow, and then I also took it off its stand. Now, this took a little elbow grease, so at first I tried to heat it up, thinking that it was glued, which I believe it was, but you know. Then I just finally used an X-Acto knife and got it off. Once it was off of there, I took a piece of scrapbook paper and I traced the pumpkin onto the scrapbook paper and cut it out. Next, by using Mod Podge, I decoupaged the scrapbook paper onto the pumpkin. Now, you want to make sure to get a nice thin layer and put it all over the surface. You definitely want to pay attention to the edges as well because you don't want the edges to flap up. But just make sure to cover it really well, and then when you push it down, just take your whole hand and lightly push it across the top. And I actually forgot to mention, don't even worry about tracing out the stem. I ended up changing it out later, so if you just trace the pumpkin part, that's good enough. Next, I took my sanding block, or you could use sandpaper, and I sanded down the edges to give it a nice clean cut. Now you want to sand in the down direction to get all the excess off. Next, I took this football and pumpkin sign. I'm gonna figure out a way to use all these footballs. I just know it, I'm determined. But I took 2 of the pumpkins off of the sign and I traced it out on burlap. Then I went ahead and cut them both out. You can also not cut out the stems for this part too because I do end up changing it out. So next we're going to take our Mod Podge again and we are going to put a thick coat, instead of a thin coat, we're going to put a thick coat onto the pumpkin, and then we're going to put the burlap on. Now you're going to see where I struggled here because I did not put enough Mod Podge, and you have to put more when you're doing burlap because it's heavier. So what I found that helped was I did it in halves. So I would cover half the pumpkin in Mod Podge, put the burlap down, push it down, and then I would do the other half. And I did this for both pumpkins. Next, I took my scissors and just gave my burlap a little haircut. I just trimmed all around the pumpkin and cut off any of the excess burlap hanging over. So this is where I decided I want to change up the stem of the big pumpkin. I wanted to bring in some of the burlap so that way it matched the two smaller pumpkins. So the reason why I'm taking the paper off is because I didn't want you to be able to see the polka dots through the burlap. So once I sanded it all down, got all the paper off, I took the burlap ribbon. I'm actually using burlap ribbon here, and I traced the stem, and then I'm just going to cut it out and put it right on the stem. Instead of using Mod Podge to glue it down, I just used hot glue because I thought it would give it a better hold. So then next I took some of my chocolate brown paint and the little rectangular box, and I'm just going to put a coat of the chocolate brown, or I think it's called chocolate bar, paint over the top. Now I'm not that careful because I'm going to cover it with this burlap anyways, so I didn't make it look perfect, but I did make sure not to get any paint on the sides because that is going to show. So I just laid this brown burlap on top, put some hot glue down, and carefully with my scissors pushed the burlap down. Then I trimmed around all edges of that as well. Now it's time to assemble our piece. Okay, so I was on the struggle bus with this one. I don't know why, but I have the hardest time trying to get things to stand up. So I took some tumbling tower blocks here that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and you're gonna see me trying to figure out what to do or what I'm doing. So at first I started off with just one, but you can tell that it's leaning back, so I took that off, and then I tried a couple different ways. Finally, I figured it out, and I will show you the end result. I do flip it around and show you what exactly I did. But basically what I did was took two tumbling tower blocks, as you see there, glued them together, glued it on the pumpkin, and then glued it down. Then for the burlap, the smaller burlap pumpkins, I used one tumbling tower block. So it just helps if you put some hot glue down first, put your pumpkin down, and then take the tumbling tower block and put it behind. But make sure to push it down really hard so that way it won't pop up. And as you can see, I put the bigger pumpkin closer to the edge at the front, and then I put the two burlap pumpkins a little bit behind it, so they were overlapping. Next, I felt that the burlap needed some distressing, so I took my Waverly Antique Wax, I shook it really hard so that some of it went into the lid, I dipped my paintbrush in the lid, I dabbed it off on a paper towel, and then lightly brushed around the edges of the small burlap pumpkins, and then also hit the stem of the big pumpkin. So the letters that I was going to use are black, so I went ahead and painted this welcome sign black that came out of that 3-pack at the fall words. So I just painted that with some black acrylic paint. I did need to do 2 coats. Next, I took 2 of these pumpkin cutouts and I painted them in my jack-o'-lantern apple barrel paint. After my pumpkins were dry, I went in with my Waverly Antique Wax and I did the same painting method that we did in the first craft. So I just took a smaller brush and made rounded edges going, well, this time I worked from the outside going in, but I did this on both pumpkins. Next, I took my sanding block and I sanded the edges of both pumpkins. Okay, so here's where things are going to get a little hairy and out of order because I put this together once and then took it apart because I didn't like it. But those pumpkins are glued down there, but I do not recommend gluing them down there now. I would just put your letters on first, or I would place them on there so you know where to put your letters, but I would not glue them down. So I just put 2 on one pumpkin and then R on the other pumpkin. And I took some Mod Podge and Mod Podged over the letters so that way the letters did not come up. Then I took some of these wooden letters from the Dollar Tree. I do realize that I forgot to show this at the beginning, but I was going to stain them. So I took my Waverly Antique Wax and I just gave them a coat of that. Then I took a baby wipe and wiped it off so it looked like stain. Next, I took the pack of wooden stickers that I did get from Hobby Lobby and I painted 2 pumpkins in that same orange. Then I took that raffia bow that we originally took off that bigger pumpkin and I glued it down to the stem of the orange pumpkin. Now, this is when I realized that I really hate the stems on the burlap pumpkins. So I took some twine and I wrapped the stems on each pumpkin in that. So I start in the back, I put some hot glue, and then I just wrap and wrap and wrap until it is all the way wrapped to the top. I truly think that by adding this small touch made such a huge difference. Then I went ahead and hot glued the other raffia bow onto the pumpkin. After that, I took my letters and I hot glued those down. Now I only put hot glue on half of each letter because as you can tell, the top half sticks up. So you don't need to put hot glue there. Then I decided that I needed something for the stem of the bigger pumpkin, so I took one of those wooden leaves off that sheet and I put that at the top of the stem, and then I stained this as well by using my Waverly Antique Wax. Also, I realized I didn't show you me putting that welcome sign on there, but you can ignore that that's even on there because, as I said before, I put this together once and then took it all apart. Okay, so here's where I take it all apart. So I decided that those 2 orange pumpkins are too far up. So what I did was I took them down and scooted them closer to the bottom as you see there. Then I took that welcome sign off and I glued it going straight instead of diagonal down lower. I just felt like the middle pumpkin was just too bare because the welcome was too far up. So then I went ahead and scooted it down. I also took those 2 little wooden pumpkins that we painted and added one to each side of the patch word. Also, let me know in the comments down below if you would have done this black and brown combination with the letters and the words. If not, what would you have done? And finally, after a ton of back and forth and changing my mind, here's my welcome to our patch sign. What do you think?